simplifying state restrictions, x minus 1 over x squared minus 4 over 1 plus 1 over x minus 3.
Good. Now, the major concern I have is when students do this. This is a major problem. If you remember, when we started chapter 7, we said we are not allowed to simplify terms. This is a term, this is a term. I'm not allowed to simplify terms. I can only simplify factors. So that we have to always keep in mind. Okay, so now for this particular case, the numerator is completely simplified in the sense that I don't have, like here, two fractions to worry about. This is also a fraction. So all I have to do to the top is to write x minus 1 over x plus 2x minus 2. That's the only thing I will do for now. However, the denominator has a least common denominator, which is x minus 2. And the top of the first fraction has to be multiplied by x minus 2. Is this okay so far? Yes? Now I will write a numerator for the denominator, for the fraction in the denominator, which will be x minus 2 plus 1. Are we okay so far? Okay, so then I copy the numerator. Now I can copy it right here. So x minus 1 over x plus 2, x minus 2, writing only two restrictions for now, plus or minus 2 from here, and plus 2 from here. This becomes x minus 1, I have to flip it. So x minus 2 over x minus 1. Because this is the fraction x minus 1 over x minus 2, and I flip that. I have to add one more restriction because I have a new denominator that I did not have before. I did not have x minus 1 before. So now this is a product. I can simplify this with this, and I write 1, and I'm simplifying the whole factor, not portions of it. Okay? Then x minus 1, I write 1, and x minus 1, and I write 1. And the final simplified form is 1 over x plus 2. See the ones at the top, right? And including the restrictions. This is an important problem. Something like this you will see on the final. Any questions?
And number 3, letter
Yes.
C, you'll probably have to look at it online. I'm just wondering why I lost points there. I'm wondering if the answer
Can I copy
itself
it?
is wrong,
Can I copy it?
or if I just
I'll
didn't
tell
write
you,
the
I'll tell
step.
you. Nope. This, if you had factored this, you would have seen that this is not the least common denominator. So once you factor in this, you have x plus 1, x plus y, x minus y, and you don't have to multiply the top by this. And you don't need to multiply the top by this.
Gotcha.
And you
Okay.
copy it.
Yeah, let's look at it. It's a good idea. So we have 1 over x plus y minus y over x squared minus y squared. That's why we always start by factoring completely everything, because then we cannot, if we don't do that first, we will not be able to establish the least common denominator. Right? So then the first one is 1 over x plus y, but the second one is x plus y, x minus y. So then the least common denominator, if you like to tell Nicole, Nicole, do you know which number this is? Okay, as long as you know, I'm fine. Okay, so then you perfectly state the restrictions. X plus y or x minus y cannot be 0. You don't have to even solve them. I'm fine. But now we realize that the least common denominator is only x plus y, x minus y. And this one needs just an x minus y. And then the top is x minus 2y, and there is nothing else. You could have gotten to eventually to this if you had continued to simplify and factor everything. So I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying the least common denominator was not correct,
Right,
and you didn't finish simplifying it. You could have gotten to the same answer
right.
if you had performed a few more steps. Very good question. Thank you. Next question. Anything else from this test? Or we can go and review for the final. Anything if you have anything else. Anything else? Do we have anything that you think you may have difficulties with on the test, on the final exam from chapter 7? Because this is fresh in our minds, but if you still say, I still need to practice such and such, then we will practice it. If not, we can put chapter 7 on the back burner and look at other things. Okay, can we say chapter 7 is under our belts? You have few questions from chapter 7 on the test. And definitely you have what you saw on this test. Nothing else. Okay? Good. I would like to review, let's say, finding linear functions. So we are given 2 points. Let's create 2 points. Please give me 2 points that you can think of, 2 ordered pairs or 2 points, and let's find the function that goes through those points, the linear function.
Pick random point.
Say it again.
Just pick random point.
Any points you want.
Alright, let's do 2 and 1.
Okay, also give me some negatives in there, so there is something negative.
-3 and -5.
Awesome. So we're asked to find the linear function that passes through these 2 points. What will you have to do first? Awesome. So let's find the slope. I recommend write the definition of the slope as y. Yes. Yes, you're right. So you can write it as y1 minus y2, but also x1 minus x2. You cannot reverse one or the other. So you either keep 1, 2, 1, 2, or 2, 1, 2, 1.
We'll do 2, 1.
Okay, so y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, I would label these as x1, y1, and x2, y2, and only then carefully plug them in. So -5 minus 1, and -3 minus 2. So the numerator is negative.
6.
Good. And the denominator is -5. So the slope is 6/5. Good. Now what do I do next? This is just the slope of the line passing through these points. It's not the equation yet. Yes? Awesome. What do I write?
Y minus y1 equals 6/5 times x minus x1.
Awesome. So now I have to pick any of these points. I'm going to pick the first one. So I'm going to write under x1, 2, under y1, 1, and under m, 6/5. And then slowly plug it in. Y minus 1 equals 6/5, x minus 2. I must distribute 6/5 to both terms and then add 1 to both sides. So y equals 6/5 x minus 6 over 5 times 2 over 1. 12/5 indeed, and plus 1. But 1 is 5 over 5. So then the simplified form, which is the slope-intercept form, is what? 6/5 x
minus 7/5.
minus 7/5. Now, if I want you to give me the y-intercept in an ordered pair format, what would you say the y-intercept is? Awesome. Right, -7/5. This is the y-intercept, 0, -7/5. When x is 0, you plug it in. You don't have to remember it, right? So how do I determine the y-intercept? I plug in x, 0. I replace x by 0. Awesome. Good. You gave me 2 points. You created these 2 points. Now I want 2 things. I want you to tell me how to determine the distance between these points and also the midpoint. How do we find the distance? Very similar to the formula for the slope. I shouldn't say very similar, but it has some connection. The square root of x2 minus x1, everything squared, plus the same thing for y. No. Everything is under the square root. Everything is under 1 square root. So only 1 square root. So the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So I recommend write those numbers under each variable. So here I have x2. I'm going to write -3. x1, I'm going to write 2. y2, I'm going to write -5 and then 1. Let's perform these calculations together. Ready? How much is -3 minus 2? How much is -5 squared? Remember, there are no negatives in here under the square root. Yes, square root of 25 plus. How much is -5 minus 1? -6 squared. 36. So then this is the square root of 61. Done. How do I determine the midpoint? The average of x's, x values, x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, exactly, x1 plus, x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. So looking at the points, okay, add up the x values, please. When we add them up, what do we get? Good, so it's -1/2. Please add up the y values. -4 divided by 2. That's it. Awesome. Do we need to review how to find the function composition? F cum G or G cum F? There were some mistakes in there.
Can we go over?
Right, so please choose 2 functions. Give me a linear function and let's say give me a quadratic function. Or a square root. Whatever you want.
Actually, can we use the ones from the test?
Yes,
Okay. So,
just give me 2 functions, any functions.
So it was f of x equals negative 3x, and g of x equals 2x squared minus 3.
Good. So let's find f comma g of x. What does this mean? What do I have to write? What is the definition so I know how to proceed? By definition, this is f of g of x. So I have to put g first in here. You don't have to erase it like that. I'm just making a point, thinking that this will trigger your memory. F of 2x squared minus 3. F of a variable is negative 3 times that variable. Negative 3 times that variable. Is this okay? So now all I have to do is distribute 3. Negative 3, forgive me. Negative 6x squared plus 9. Now the other one, g comp f, what is the definition? G of f of x, which is g of x. Good. Now I look at g. G says g of blah equals 2 blah squared minus 3. 2 blah squared minus 3. And now the variable is negative 3x. So when I square, because by the order of operations I have to square first, I have 2 multiplied by negative 3 squared is, and x squared is x squared. I'm not distributing or anything. I have to multiply these two, so I get 18x squared minus 3. What if I am asked to find g comp g of 2? I don't have g comp g, but I don't have to determine it, because this by definition means g of exactly. Awesome. So now all I have to do is find this. I don't know if I muted my phone though. I don't even know where it is. Well, I think I didn't mute it. Okay, so what do I do? So yes, so 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 minus 3 is 5. So this is g of 5. I go back to g now. So 5 squared, 25 times 2, 50. 50 minus 3, 47. Any questions on this? Questions on this? Okay, let's find an inverse of a function. Give me a function that is 1 to 1, and let's find its inverse. (3x squared minus 2). Let's think for a moment. Is a function that looks like this. Is this function 1 to 1? No. By the horizontal line test, it's not 1 to 1. Okay.
3x minus 2.
Good. Or we can put a cube root, for example. Let's say the cube root of 2x minus 1. Or we can use the square root, the square root of x minus 3. Or you're right, we can use a linear function, 2x minus 3. You choose. Which of these would you like to find the inverse for? The cube root. Good. Well, it's a 4-step procedure. Step 1. So y equals the cube root of 2x minus 1. Awesome. Step 2. Yes, because remember, the y value for f becomes the x value for f inverse. So this is x equals the cube root of 2y minus 1. We're solving for y because that's what we're after. Y is now f inverse. What do I have to do, and what type of equation is this? I have to cube both sides. Awesome. So the left-hand side is awesome. The right-hand side is next step towards solving for y. Final step. So this was 2, and this was 3, solving for y, and step 4, final step.
Change it back to f
Inverse of x is x cubed plus 1 over 2. Very good. Any questions? Is this clear? Let's solve some absolute value inequalities. Make one up. One with less than or equal to, and one with greater than or equal to. In absolute value, let's say minus 5 or minus 4, greater than or equal to 6. Awesome. And let's create another one. And then we'll come back and solve both of them.
absolute value
Let's say 3
3 times x minus 2, absolute value of x minus 2.
plus 6 less than or equal to
10.
perfect. Good. So let's start with the first one. So we have the absolute value of 7x minus 3. What do I have to do first?
Add 4.
Good. And now I have to think. I can take 3, I can divide by 7, nothing. Now, this is untouchable. You cannot perform any operation on it. What you can do, or what we can do, is change it into something that we can solve. What is that something that I can solve? Because right now I can't touch it.
7x minus 3.
I cannot change the inequality into an equal symbol. I have to think there are only 2 types of absolute value inequalities. This one or this one. That's all I know. There's nothing else. This one or this one. How do I change that? Which one is this? Is it this or is it this? Exactly. So that I would like you to tell me that. Exactly that. Exactly what you just showed me. So 7x minus 3 is
Less than or equal to negative.
awesome.
Yeah. It's greater than or equal equals to 10.
Of course, because it's this. To the right-hand side of 10, or, that's why we'll have the union, or left-hand side of negative 10. Awesome. So let's solve them. And please give me the solution with the union. Very good. Do we have the solution for the first one?
Negative infinity to negative 1.
Yes, because you are adding, so you're subtracting and dividing by 7, right? So 7x minus 3 less than or equal to negative 10, 7x less than or equal to negative 7. We divide both sides by 7. Indeed, negative infinity, negative 1. Now we're adding 3, and we get 7x greater than or equal to 13. So x greater than or equal to 13 divided by 7. So this is
13 over 7 is infinity. Right.
Of course. Very good. Good, let's solve the other one. So 3, the absolute value of x minus 2 plus 6 less than or equal to 10. What will you do first?
Check 6.
Good.
Divide both sides by 2.
Excellent. We cleaned it up completely. Now, if we don't remember how to continue, we can't touch this. So how do I continue? I only have to think that there are only two types of absolute value inequalities. This one and this one. Which one is this? Is it the outside? I like to say the outside or the inside, or the in-between. In between. So if I decided this, or I establish the fact that this is the in-between, how do I write? Because I can't do anything here. I can't subtract. I can add 2. I cannot touch this. This is done in this form. But I can replace it by
Negative 4 thirds less than x minus 2 less than 4 thirds.
awesome. It's the in-between, between negative 4 thirds and 4 thirds. Very good. What is the only thing we can have to do here? Add 2 to all 3 sides. Good. So 2 minus 4 thirds, I'll calculate in a minute, x 4 thirds plus 2. The least common denominator, and perform the operations. So the left-hand side, the least common denominator is, and then this one needs a 3. So this will be 6 minus 4. Now this one is, again, the same idea, 3, so this will be 6 plus 4, which is 10. In interval notation,
2/3, comma 10/3 bracket.
Perfect. Very good. Okay, let's come up with an example for completing the square. Give me any equation that is quadratic, of course, that we need to solve by completing the square. Make one up. Just give me any quadratic equation.
X squared minus 6x plus 27.
Awesome. Good. You were kind to us. You did not put a leading coefficient, right, other than 1. So we don't have to divide both sides by the leading coefficient because you chose an example with a leading coefficient 1. If I had 3 here, or 5, or whatever, I had to divide both sides by that number first. We know that. We cannot complete the square if the leading coefficient is not 1. Awesome. Good. First step towards completing the square. Identify the middle coefficient, which is good. We divide -6 by 2, because remember the formula. A plus b squared is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So we divide the middle coefficient by 2, which is?
-3.
Now we square -3. What do we get? 9. This is the number that we have to add to both sides. We will rewrite the equation and move 27 to the other side, of course changing its sign. So now I have x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 9 minus 27. Please remember, we have to add to both sides. Now the left-hand side is something I tortured you for the last 3 months and a half. That's why. What do I replace the left-hand side by? It's our agreement. Yes, exactly. The number that I squared to get 9, of course. So the left-hand side is indeed x minus 3 squared. What do we have on the right-hand side? Awesome. After all this effort, I haven't solved. I completed the square, but I haven't solved. What do I have to do next? Indeed. Because we know we have 4 methods of solving quadratic equations, and this is one of them. Good. How many solutions will I get when I solve a quadratic equation? Mandatory, so I don't forget something very important.
Would this case be 2 because the
2, of course. So how do I write?
X minus 3 equals the square root of -8.
If I forget plus or minus, I will only write one solution instead of 2, right? So plus or minus. That's why I asked how many solutions I expect. If I don't put plus or minus, I will only get one solution. So now we have to split the square root of -18. How do I split it?
square root
-1 times the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. So the square root of -1, the square root of 9, the square root of 2. So then, how do I simplify that?
3
Indeed. Final step.
and 3.
Perfect. Let's practice the quadratic formula. Give me another equation or the same one. Do you want to solve the same one? Yeah, let's solve the same one. So x squared minus 6x plus 27 equals 0. We want to solve the same equation, but this time the requirement is use the quadratic formula. Can anyone dictate the quadratic formula?
B plus
Negative. So x, I have to start with x, equals negative b.
plus or minus
Yes,
the square root of b squared
awesome,
minus 4ac
awesome,
over 2a.
awesome. So let's carefully plug it in. And of course, remember we have to get the same answer. Negative b, plus or minus b squared.
36.
No, it cannot be negative. This cannot be a negative number ever. I know you didn't say that, but I think Nicole did. Maybe I'm wrong. I apologize if I am wrong.
No, I did.
So this can never be a negative number no matter what b is. So if I see that the student starts with a negative in here, I don't look at the problem. So no matter what, this is a squared number. Clear? Please. So 36 minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 27, divided by 2 times a. Because of b squared, when I see a negative there, I don't look. Good. So then x equals 6. And also, I don't look if I see something like this. If a student does this, I don't look. Why? Why is this wrong? 2 is a factor in the denominator, but 6 is not a factor in the numerator. It's a term. Correct. Awesome. Yes. Okay, so please. I'm not saying you did. I'm just emphasizing that that is not allowed. Okay, so 4 times 27, that's 54 plus 54, right? 108. And then 36 minus 30, negative 72. Thank you. Perfect. Now I have to work on negative 72. So the square root of negative 72. So this is the square root of negative 1. It's the square root. I know it's 9 and 8, right? The square root of 9, but 8 is 4 and 2. The square root of 4 and the square root of 2. Would you agree so far? Okay. So then what do I replace this by? Just this piece. By. I have a 3. I have a 2. I have an I. So what is this replaced by then?
6i, the square root of 2.
Awesome. 6i, the square root of 2. So let's continue. Remember, we have to get the same answer, and we're not there yet. One more step. So then x equals 6 plus or minus 6i, the square root of 2 divided by 2. We have two options here. One option would be to factor out something from the two terms at the top. The other option would be to split the fraction. It doesn't matter which way you want to go. You choose. You split the fraction into two fractions, fine, and then you are allowed to simplify. Or you factor out the common factor at the top, and then you simplify. Which one?
That's fine.
Okay. So what is the common factor at the top?
6.
Awesome. What do we have in parentheses?
1 plus or minus I 2.
Awesome. Now 6 is a factor because it's multiplied. Now I can simplify. And I get that x equals 3 times 1 plus or minus I, the square root of 2. It is recommended to separate it. It's a complex number. If you remember, we have a plus bi. So this is okay. This is the same thing. They are the same. So I recommend this. But both of them are the same. Good, very good. Questions? Let's look at the radical equation. These I cannot make up, only because, well, actually we can make one up because now we know the quadratic formula. It doesn't matter. Or if we want nice answers, then I have to look and find a problem, pick a problem. So that was in chapter 10, at the end of chapter 10. 10.5 actually. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, let's say 17 on page 630. X minus the square root of 4 minus 3x equals negative 8. Let's think for a moment, and maybe someone would like to walk us through the steps. What will be the first thing we need to do here? Any ideas?
Make sure to get the radical by itself.
Of course. That is the first step. We have to move to one side everything that does not have the radical, and the radical to be isolated on the other. Because I see here negative and I see here negative, this is what I would like to do. It doesn't matter. It can multiply by negative 1 also. But I recommend x plus 8 equals the square root of 4 minus 3x. So then, now,
Square both sides.
right, not term by term, right? The whole thing, the whole left-hand side and the whole right-hand side. Awesome. What do we get on the left-hand side and how many terms?
3 terms.
3 terms, yes, we have an agreement. Thank you for not breaching it.
It'd be x squared plus 16x plus 64.
See, now once you got used to it and you understand it, you
It
can't.
does get easier.
Right.
It's much easier.
Right. But it took my torture. See, I have 1% of your success. It was right here in my palm. And these markers. 1% I take away from you. Okay, so now what? What type of equation is this?
Quadratic.
Right. And what do I do next?
Equal it to 0.
Yes. So I have x squared.
Plus 19x
Indeed.
plus 16.
Very good. Now, you have 4 different methods. Of course, I'm not going to complete the square. Of course, I'm not going to take the square root. I have 2 options here. Either I take the time to factor, or I say, forget it. I have the quadratic formula, and I'm done. It's up to you. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So just give me the solutions. Just kidding. Have you checked? Ah, not allowed. You understand why?
Yes.
Because taking both sides to a power does not necessarily guarantee that the solution is the right one. It does not. It's the only way we have, but we have to go back and check. Do they work? Is it a yes? Okay, so let's do it by hand then. So x minus the square root of 4 minus 3x equals negative 8. This is the original problem, correct? Okay. So I'm checking negative 15 first. So I have negative 15 minus the square root of negative 3 times negative 15. Negative 3 times negative 15 is positive 45, and plus 4 is 49. The square root of 49 is negative 15 minus 7 negative 8? So I borrow $15 from you, and then I say I need 7 more. Okay, I wish banks will give us. Okay, so the answer is no. Okay, now we are trying for negative 4. Negative 3 times negative 4 is 12. 12 plus 4 is 16. The square root of 16 is 4. 4 with minus in front. Negative 4, right? Okay. Negative 4 minus 4 is that negative 8. Yes. And that is the only solution. Let's rationalize denominators. Please give me a problem in which we need to rationalize the denominator. Square root of 3 minus 4 the square root of 7. Make up some numerator, whatever you want. 2 the square root of 5 plus 1. Okay, we want to rationalize the denominator. What do we rationalize it by? Multiply both by, very good. It has to be 1, right? So the top and the bottom have to be the same. Awesome. But by what? Remember, it's the same with dividing complex numbers. Same idea. Same idea. When I rationalize, I think of dividing by a complex number. Similar.
The opposite, right? So
The conjugate, it's called, but I know what you mean. So I have
square root of 3 plus
exactly. Exactly, because remember, we have an agreement on this. This is the formula a minus b times
a plus b.
correct, which will give us, when we multiply them, it will give us, this is one of those three from 3 months and a half ago.
A squared plus b.
It cannot be plus because the sum is not factorable. Indeed, indeed, the sum is not factorable. If you remember, in the handout for chapter 6, we put 4 formulas for binomials. And the one that we said is not factorable is a squared plus b squared. Is this clear? Okay, good. So now let's multiply. Use the formula because it will be easier. You can use FOIL if you want to, but it will take longer. If you use the formula, I think it will be easier. If you want to take the final on Monday, I don't want to forget to tell you that. I'll be here on Monday from 5 to 9 p.m. I'll be here on Tuesday from 5 to 7. If you don't like either of them, just go to the testing center. If, I don't remember right now if I put it in for Monday being the last day, but if that's the case, call me. And I'll tell them, will you be taking it on Monday? Because I know I put it in definitely till Monday, but I don't remember if I put it till Tuesday.
Yeah, I'll probably be coming on Tuesday.
You're going to be coming on Tuesday. Will you come between 5 and 7 or here in this room or go to the testing center?
I was gonna try to go during the day.
Okay,
I'm
then.
on vacation
That's
next
fine.
week.
That's fine. That's fine. I will double check. Okay, very good. I'll write myself a note to check that. Or I will just email them and say I'm extending it till Tuesday just in case. Okay. So what is the denominator in the first step? Not the whole thing. First term squared. Exactly, because when I square a radical, that's what happens. Minus the second term squared. Do not give me the final form. Just tell me what to write initially. There are 2 factors in there. Yes, 4 squared. I have to square 4, which is 16, multiplied by the square of 7 squared. I cannot just pick and choose and square just part of it, right? So I have to square 4, and I have to square the square of 7, which is perfect. And I'll come back later. Now, what do I do here? This is more difficult because I have to distribute this to these 2 terms, and then 1 to these two terms. So what do I get? When I multiply this by this, 2 the square root of, awesome, plus, now 2 and 4, and then these two. Awesome. And now the rest I just copy. 1 times these two. The square root of 3 plus 4, the square root of 7. Nothing we can do here. It's done. But I have to simplify the denominator. So I have 3 minus 16 times 7. What do we get? I got minus 109. So I will copy everything from the top, not doing anything to it. And the denominator is minus 109. I would like to put the negative in front of the fraction line. So I will write it like this. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, let's square something with radicals. Give me a quantity and let's square it. Something that we cannot combine. Say it again.
Square root of 5 plus 3.
Okay, the square root. So I'm going to say x the square root of 5 plus 3. So there is an x in there. Not even a y. How many terms will you give me? Yes, awesome. So let's square the first term. Remember, you have to square each piece of this first term.
X squared.
Times, awesome. So I'm going to write 5x squared. Plus 2 from the formula. 2 times x times 3y. And then the square root. I can't multiply anything inside the square root. So because 2 does not have a square root. So 2 times 3 times x times y times the square root of 5. 2 times 3 is 6. And then, that's it. Plus. Plus what?
9
That's it. Good. Give me a right triangle with, let's say, this is being y, and give me something here and something here. Let's say 3 the square root of 3, and make one up. The square root of 5. Okay. How do I find y? This is a right triangle. What do I have to write in order to find the unknown length, which is, it happens to be a leg? Which theorem do I have to apply here? Exactly. Awesome. And always remember, I don't, when students say a squared plus b squared equals c squared.
I started to say that. And then
But-
I finally did it.
But remember, if I don't tell you which one is the leg and which one is the hypotenuse, it will make no sense. So it's always the sum of the squares of the legs will equal the square of the longest side, which is always the hypotenuse. This is always the longest. So that one squared must be the sum of the squares of the two legs, the measures of the two legs. So how would you write it? Initially, I have to see it.
5 squared plus
The square root of 5 squared, excellent, plus the other leg squared.
Yeah, that was when I started with y squared.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's okay.
I heard that I heard 5 in my sorry, my mistake. Equals. So you're gonna say, and I interrupted you. Forgive me. So y squared plus this squared. I thought you said 5, but you said y. Okay, my mistake. Sorry. Okay, indeed, y squared plus the square root of 5. Okay, equals.
3, the square root of 3 squared.
That's it. Awesome. That's all I needed. Good. So let's find y. It's a quadratic equation, but this particular quadratic equation will not have two solutions. Why? It will not have plus or minus. Why? Because y is a distance. It's a distance. So in this particular case, I will not write plus or minus. I will write plus or minus, but then I will cross it out and say only positive because y is a distance. Good. So let's solve this.